I have to say this is going to be a little bit like following Springsteen on stage. Good afternoon, my name is Matt Amoroso. For the past 19 years, I have been a math teacher at Cosgrove Middle School. For the past 7 years, I have also been the department's teacher leader. However, my most important role is that of a father to 3 school-age children. Next year, I will have daughters in kindergarten, 4th grade, and 6th grade. For too many years, the state education department has administered assessments in early spring, yet the scores generated from these assessments are withheld for several months. Schools do not receive student scores until fall of the following year. Whether a student is considered passing, a level 3 or 4, or failing, a level 2 or 1, is determined by something called a cut score. I'd like to briefly define what a cut score is. Each year the exams have been administered, the state education department goes through a lengthy, complicated process of assigning weight and value to each question. This becomes even more complicated when the testing company embeds field test questions in the exams that do not count at all. The result is a different raw score each year that serves as the cut point between passing and failing. The cut score is an ambiguous number that holds no relevance when compared to the scores from previous years. In 2013, the cut score for a level 3 for 8th grade math was 293. The previous year was 647. The data that schools eventually receive merely consists of each student's raw score. Arbitrary numbers like 293 or 674 do not give any indication of a student's strengths or weaknesses, especially when these scores are not released with the test questions themselves. Without more information, this data is far too limited and ambiguous to justify the amount of instructional time lost by administering and scoring the tests. For authentic assessments, teachers determine what constitutes success prior to giving exams. When the scoring benchmarks for an assessment are set before the exam is administered, the question is, how many students will meet the standard? When the benchmarks are set after the exam is administered, the question becomes, how many students should meet the standard? This subtle difference is extremely significant, and it has allowed for rising and falling cut scores and passing rates for these exams over the course of the past 10 years. Each year after the tests have been administered, the state education department can decide how many students will pass or fail. With the school year ending next week, we have no idea how our students did on tests they took earlier this year. In a culture where data is upheld as the only answer to the complex problems our schools face, we will no longer tolerate testing practices that assess students in April and May, yet leave schools completely uninformed until August or September. For the tens of millions of taxpayer dollars spent, it should be as simple as this when it comes to giving a math or reading test. Give schools the test and scoring materials. Have the teachers administer and score the exams. Immediately after scoring, the results should be clear, and teachers should be able to discuss their students' scores and how they impact classroom instruction and district curriculum. The state education department should not be allowed to spend months determining each particular year who gets to pass and who will fail. Assessing the basic reading, writing, and math skills of the children in our elementary and middle schools should not be this complicated or mysterious.